One of the most important lessons I learned from as young as the age of 4, growing up in a single parent family, is that money does not come from or through men. And I know there's a lot of stigma often and shame heaped upon particularly women who are single parents and primary caregivers to their children. And it was no different when I was growing up in the 90s. However, that held me in such good stead. From as young as the age of 4, I understood that money did not come from men or through men. I understood that I needed to make my own money. And actually, when I got to the age of 12, I was once in a fabric store with my mother, and I was hanging about as you do as a child while your mother's off doing her stuff. I asked the shop assistant how I could get a job. She laughed, and then she said to me, "You can only get a job when you turn 16. So in the UK, it's usually 16 is that official age that you can apply for official jobs." She laughed and she said, "You have to be 16. I immediately worked out in my head how many years I had to go before I could get my own job. And then she said, "But your NI number," so again in the UK, the number is your national insurance number. It is the equivalent to the social security number in the US. She said, "Well, that number might be sent to you just before you turn 16. So I will never forget that day, because as I stood there in that fabric shop watching people pay for things, right, I said to myself, right, I can't wait until my number comes in the post. From that day onwards, I was always finding ways to make money. It's always been a curiosity. It's always something that I've enjoyed. Of course, over the years, I've discovered there are plenty of ways that you can make money. But of course, at that age, what I understood was that I needed to get a job. I say this because so many women, particularly single women, are still living in a fantasy, romance, fairy tale world where money predominantly, first and foremostly, comes through men and from men. So you're still almost waiting for a man to provide for you. And I think this is extremely problematic, especially this whole concept of provider in the modern world that we live in now, for a number of reasons. And there are single women who may well have their own job, may well be living their own lives, but still subconsciously they are thinking about, yearning for, still hold that as this wish or hope or dream. Now, I'm not commenting on whether or not you will end up in a marriage or a relationship. That's not what this particular video is about. What I am saying is that on a subconscious level, we can still hold those beliefs. Because those beliefs are often subconscious, they might be driving our habits, our patterns, our behaviors, and our approach to money. Whether or not you are conscious of it or not, whether or not you are single by choice or circumstance. So quite often you might be capping yourself, you might be limiting yourself as to how much money you can possibly generate into your life via a business or via investments, via a job, however it is that you bring money into your life. In addition to that, you may even doubt your right to have more money than you need, right? You may be subconsciously slowing down, holding back from making as much money as you would like to make. You may even still be justifying your spending habits, right, according to how much money you make. Because quite often women are mischaracterized as frivolous spenders. Just because you're single, it doesn't mean you haven't absorbed some of these beliefs and ideas as well, like I say, on a deep subconscious level. And I recognize that I might be one of the outliers. Because of the fact that I grew up in a single parent family, I understood this acutely from a very young age. I understood that my ability, the possibility, the power, the opportunity, and the leverage that I could create as a single individual, as a single woman, as a woman, depending on what I was thinking about at the time, that I can make as much money as I want on my own terms. You have to understand that once you do away with, let go of that false belief that money comes from and through men, it opens the world up to you in an entirely new way. The runway is completely clear. You can shortcut yourself to surplus, overflow and more money than you need. And this is really key in the day and age we're living in now. If you're a single woman, there is no reason for you to be struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, or broke, regardless of what you see on media, regardless of what you see around you. It doesn't matter what other people's circumstances are. You can choose something different.